Hi, everyone. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And I have Wade Lightheart here again, but this time we're going to talk about his personal story.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about
Uh,
what was going on with this bodybuilding business.
it's interesting, at least from my standpoint, and that was, when I was a kid, grew up in Canada, played all the sports and everything, and then three things happened. When I was 15 years old, my parents moved to a very rural area. It was literally 5 miles up a dirt road to our nearest neighbor in the middle of the woods. They were the caretakers for a wealthy businessman who had a private resort. So I wasn't happy about going there, but my parents thought it was great. Simultaneously, my sister shortly afterwards was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, which is cancer of the lymph nodes. And I watched her go through the medical model over the next 4 years before she died at the age of 22. She was 4 years my senior. And she also gave me, just around the time she got sick, a bodybuilding magazine that had on the cover Troy Zuclato, Mr. California, with these two pretty girls on the cover. And I thought, wow, if you got these muscles, maybe you get these girls. So I built a gym in my barn, kind of like Rocky Four style, with sawhorses and pulleys and tractor tires, and constructed a gym essentially, and began training, and had this dream of living in Venice Beach, California, and training with Arnold Schwarzenegger and going to Mr. Olympias and stuff like that, like a childhood dream. And I went into school, studied exercise physiology, and found that university provided a lot of compartmentalized information, but wasn't really good at the application of that. So after I got out of university, I worked in every aspect of the health industry, from being in warehouses that handled nutrition, working in retail stores, running a gym, and then becoming a personal trainer and a nutritionist, which landed me out in Vancouver, Canada, ultimately, and began training the who's who in Vancouver, and simultaneously had got into Eastern philosophy, spirituality. And after a number of bumps and bruises in this thing called life, I came up with this concept to see if I could compete successfully as a vegetarian, which everyone said wasn't possible. And I'm not here to advocate vegetarianism or anything like that. That's not what the goal was. It was just a set of parameters that people said weren't possible. And I felt that there was an opportunity to, under an extreme constraint, to be able to develop new understanding and new technologies that would allow a person to thrive regardless of the dietary choice. Long story short, I ended up winning a bunch of national championships in Canada and competing at the Mr. Universe. And when I got back from the Mr. Universe in 2003, I gained 42 pounds of fat and water in 11 weeks. So you can imagine, from my time in the barn and the time of this, first my journey was, hey, I just wanted to be strong and fit and that sort of thing. And then my sister gets ill, and I realized, well, your life isn't a guarantee and your health isn't a guarantee. And so I built an external model of what health is. And I think a lot of people, when they look at a magazine or they look at an Instagram model or they look at a movie star or they look at an athlete, they instantly assume that that's healthy, which is really fitness. Fitness is a component of health, but oftentimes through performance-based lives, you compromise my health. And here I went down this route and wanted to avoid using drugs and all this stuff, and did make it to the world championships. Now, genetically, I'm not genetically advantaged. I have no business being in a bodybuilding show. I don't naturally build muscle easily. I'm not naturally lean easily. I don't have the best muscle bellies or bone structures or all the elements that you would require, but I was fortunate enough and stubborn enough or stupid enough to continue down that sport and get to the world championships. But when I had this major health crisis after, I mean, like, what happened? I go to this competition. I've been training for 16 years. I got the best coaching. I got the best discipline, and I have my own health crisis. And I got lucky. I met a doctor by the name of Dr. Michael O'Brien, and he was the most vibrant senior citizen I've ever met. One of the most vibrant people on the planet I've ever met. And he was in his late 70s, and he had told us a story about how he overcame cancer and cirrhosis of the liver. And he had helped Bernard Jensen, the great, recover from cancer as well and paralysis. And he used a program that involved enzymes and probiotics and various amino acids and minerals. And, no one was talking about this back in 2003. I asked him after his seminar and I said, well, what do I like? I've got all these things going on. What am I doing wrong? And he said something to me that changed my life. And he said, Wade, you've learned to build the body from the outside in. I'm going to teach you how to build the body from the inside out. And so I went on his program. And at that time, it was about $1,500. My business partner, Matt Gallant, who's the co-founder of Bioptimizers, we both went on it and we both had remarkable results. And out of that, I recovered my health. I got my fitness back. I got my health back, but I felt way better than I had. So in the bodybuilding world, there was an acceptance that you kind of feel like crap to look good. And I think a lot of people have that attitude around diet or around health. They see it as a very restrictive lifestyle that isn't worth engaging in because they don't see the rewards soon enough, consistently enough, or the rewards don't offset what they feel as the liabilities. Therefore, they don't do it. And that's why we have a 96% fail rate in diet philosophy. I aimed at changing that. First, we started off with Matt and I started our company at that time and we coached about 15,000 athletes around the world and tracked all the different variances with different diet, different lifestyles, different patterns or whatever, because we wanted them to avoid the mistakes that I was making, that I had made. And then from that, we figured out that compound. I went back to the world championships using all this new technology that we had cultivated and developed. I did way better at the world championships. I didn't have the crash. So then we decided that we would change the company because we were older and I wasn't as interested in doing bodybuilding contests and things like that. I was more into what does healthy high performance look like? How do I reduce the effects of aging? How do we evaluate that? And so we've spent the last 18 years essentially working on that at our company Bioptimizers, and we've built some great models and we've been able to develop some technology that's really improved the quality of life for a lot of people during that time. So much so that this year at 50 years old, I went back to, I entered into a competition at 50, won an overall men's competition at the Ironman International, and competed at the World Championships, Natural Mystery Olympics. So no drugs, no TRT, no chemicals, none of those things that are used in those things, and was able to compete at that level again. I didn't win. Again, I don't really have the genetics to win at the World Championships, but I can get there through all this technology. And from that extreme limitations, we're able to garner a lot of things because it's a very meticulous process. So from that, we're moving on. I'm going to go run a marathon to show that you can run a marathon too, which are two opposite things. So I'm in training for that. And all of that to say is that a lot of the paradigms that people are operating from are incomplete. And this incompleteness causes people to fail when trying to get fit or trying to get healthy or trying to do whatever, because most of the data does not account for genetic individually. It does not account for where a person might be hormonally. It doesn't account for where their mitochondrial health will be, or these really big movers that aren't part of the generalized conversation.
Well, I love it. And everybody needs to hear it. And the products have changed my life, which, this was really about hearing your story, but we can't go without, what spun out of that. And that is this amazing company, which I would have said that I am a healthy person, but the products have changed my life. And I see them changing other people's lives as well, getting people sleeping, getting them circulating, getting them pooping, getting them absorbing. And magnesium, that was the one thing that's how I found out about you, was through the magnesium. And, when I had heard what you had said about how magnesium is really what's missing, one of the things that I had heard you talk about on another podcast was how you had to choose. I might be wording this wrong. Basically, you realized that the path that you were taking was not gaining health, and you wanted both. Are you vegan or vegetarian or?
Well, I always say that I'll have eggs or cheese recreationally. So if I was in a social situation, there wasn't any other options, or I might have a piece of pizza, or I might go, like we had Valentine's the other day and I had an ice cream. I don't eat any flesh and haven't. And I don't eat, say, dairy or eggs or things like that often. I don't necessarily avoid them. I just tend not to eat them that much, but I don't have any issues with it. But yeah, I haven't eaten any meat in 20 some years.
Do you mind sharing why, like what brought you to that point that you decided that lifestyle?
Early on, before genetic testing was available, and a lot of the panels that you can do right now as a bodybuilder, one of the things that I learned from my coach, Scott Abel, and was to track everything that was going on my body. We'd just take a journal just like this, paper, pen and paper, and I would literally write out how I felt, what was my energy level, how I responded to different meals, how my cognitive health was I tired, was I whatever, was I energized, was I making progress? And over the course of literally decades, I developed an acute awareness of my responsiveness physically to just about anything. And that awareness led me to a variety of discoveries. I began to come with these kind of intuitive innovations. And I'd read about experimenting with a plant-based diet, which was totally radical as a bodybuilder. I was like, everyone told me that's stupid. No one can do that. And I was like, well, okay, maybe that's true, but why is it? No one could actually tell me why it was true. They had these things, well, you can't get enough protein or you can't get enough this. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's true. Let's find out. And what I realized, it wasn't amount of protein, it was your capability to convert it. Now, you can probably learn everything I learned about yourself. It took me 30 years and 30 minutes if you get a good genetic test. And to bring this full circle, I had discovered a lot of things. When I tried a ketogenic diet, for example, I would get, once I hit my fat at a certain level, I would get fat in my stool. So I knew I wasn't breaking down that fat and I didn't feel good. I knew when I ate carbohydrates, I felt good. And my business partner was literally the inverted opposite. He would get blown out from carbohydrates and do really well on fats. So I was like, well, that's interesting. Well, why is that? Like, we were very clear that we're two people in the same industry producing results from completely different parameters in our observation. So now you can take a genetic test and you can find out all these things. Turned out that for me, where a bodybuilding diet is good for my blood sugar, let's say a high protein, moderate carbohydrate, low fat diet, a high fat diet didn't do well on me. But if I was using animal fats, I can have the genes that lead to cardiovascular problems. So my blood sugar would be okay, but eventually I would develop cardiovascular problems. So what I found is if I increased my protein intake through various plant components, used a really good enzymatic and probiotic formula, I was able to digest what I was getting. So as you might guess, I'm an extreme type person. And on top of training and doing all this, I was running 3 companies at one point and traveling all over the world and got myself into a little bit of a burnout. And when I did my blood tests, and are doing a SpectraCell test, and that's a great test for people to test if they want to see what their body's actually absorbing and utilizing, I was deficient in magnesium and B12. Well, B12 made sense being on a plant-based diet, and that was easily correctable. But I'm like, I'm taking magnesium. Why am I not absorbing it? And it turned out I did some research and found Charles Poliquin, who was a famous coach. He used different types of magnesium to offset the stress that his professional and Olympic athletes are doing, because they're at a high stress level from all this activity there. And that becomes the limiting factor at the top end of the spectrum, because the difference between first place and last place at an Olympic event is about 1 or 2%. Magnesium, for example, is used in over 300 different processes in the body. It's a cofactor element that activates a variety of things. And if you don't have it, there's whole systems that don't get turned on or turned off appropriately. And turned out that we were able to settle on 7 different types of magnesium. And because magnesium is such a critical element and virtually everybody's deficient in it in North America, then that goes back to your farming issue and soil and industrial production and things like that. Also, there's some evidence that living in a highly EMF area that we actually exhaust our magnesium supply. Same as if you do a lot of stimulants like caffeine and other stimulating effects, you can, and a lot of pharmaceutical drugs will require a lot of magnesium as well. So neurochemicals formation requires a lot of magnesium. So that's a big issue in our world today. So we came up with this formula that we combine the different types of magnesium so we get a better effect synergistically, it would be absorbed better, utilized better. And we built it for ourselves, and we decided, well, we'll might as well sell it. We see how it works. And we started selling it. And then this tsunami of crazy testimonials started to hit the company. You know, people's PMS started going away. People could sleep better. People had restless leg syndrome going away. People, you know, had more energy. And it just keeps going. And like every week I get a new testimonial. I'm like, magnesium can fix that? Really? We're just delighted to be able to serve mankind, because our goal was to end physical suffering and activate what we call biologically optimized health. We did that. We built a money back guarantee in all of our products. People can try any product in Bioptimizers. And if it doesn't work for them, they don't feel good on it, they don't feel better than ever, well, we just give them their money back, because like, okay, you tried that wasn't the right one for you, go to the next one. That's landed us as one of the fastest growing health companies in America. That's why we landed on the Inc. 500. We make really great stuff. Mm-hmm. We back it up. We have good customer service, and we're just out there to advocate for all the people that want to have a better health and want to try something risk-free.
Where do you get genetic testing?
There's a variety of genetic tests out there. We're going to make one available at Bioptimizers, but you can go to a great company out there is the DNA company, is a one I think is great because they keep their information private. You can both take a test with them. You can also get education with them as well. They'll assign a naturopathic doctor to you. You can pay a little bit more, and they'll walk you through all of the risk factors that you have individually. I think it's a really great service that they provide. And then they even have a mini course that you can take to really understand the roles of your genetics. So your diet and lifestyle is the software, and your genetics is the hardware. And so what you get to realize is I can upgrade my software to make the hardware work appropriately. And that's essentially what we're able to do. And that's what we advocated by Optimizers. Our book is all about that. We also have another one that's available at the site called From Sick to Superhuman. What are the tests that you can engage in? What things make the most sense? We have the Awesome Health podcast as well, where I go into it. And then I have a course that I give away for free to everybody called the 84 Days. And that's basically a 12-week course to walk you through the areas to think about and to implement in a simple, effective way into your lifestyle sequentially. And I always say, don't restrict yourself. And that's what the course is about. Don't restrict yourself. Just keep adding good things into your life. And eventually the things that are hurting you will drop away. It's a much easier way of integration. So if you integrate one thing every couple of weeks that's better for you, then pretty soon there's no room for the bad stuff and you feel great.
And how long until Bioptimizers is going to come out with their own genetic testing?
That'll be coming out this year.
Good. Awesome. While I have you on here, there is a new product to me. I'm not sure if it's new for the company, but cognibiotics.
Yes, we have several different probiotic offerings. And
yes.
Why do you have different probiotics, right?
Right. So tell us.
Okay, so we have 3 different basic offerings in probiotics, which are going to help in different areas. So people think, oh, I'm taking probiotics, but they don't know that there's hundreds of strains, and different strains are complementary to each other, and some are adversarial to each other. And some people will do well on one probiotic, and some people will do better on others. So our our Navy SEAL probiotic was P3OM. It's really good for assisting in wiping out bad guys inside the body, right? It's unparalleled in its effectiveness as a single probiotic that almost anyone can benefit from. We have another product called Biome Breakthrough, which is specifically designed to rebuild the biome, the little mucus layer inside your intestinal tract, which is proven now because of pesticides and chemicals to be disrupted for most people. That's why a lot of people have trouble with gluten or have bloating and gas after meals. So that's another product that we put together with it to help rebuild that. And then the third one, which you talked about, was cognibiotics. So what a lot of people don't realize is about 95% of your serotonin is made in your intestinal tract. So a lot of people that suffer from, I would say, low mood, if you look at their diets, they usually have competitive bacteria strains that are suppressing the growth of these good probiotics that make the neurochemicals, and their diet doesn't support, and oftentimes they will get sugar cravings to kind of offset the low serotonin levels and things like that. So what we did with our research team in Croatia is we looked at the bacteria strains that were required in manufacturing these neurotransmitters that make us feel good. And so we put them all together, and then we combined it. We had a Chinese herbal expert who combined a series of Chinese herbs, which would be used traditionally for a similar type situation to kind of improve people's cognitive health. What we did is we put both of these together because they worked synergistically, the probiotics and these Chinese herbs. So there was a sense of, when people start taking it originally, right off the bat, they feel the effects of the Chinese herbs. It's like there's over, say, a week or 2 weeks, that they start feeling a calming, relaxed sense where they might have been more toward the more anxious or uptight kind of side of life. And then as the probiotics build up, they started to notice dietary changes, and then a more stabilized state of awareness. And I always suggest to people to track, like I did before in their books, like, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? What's your food cravings like? How did you sleep? And people who do that start to notice, oh, I'm actually feeling pretty good when I wake up in the morning. And I notice I'm not craving for sugar so much in the evening and things like that. So that's where cognibiotics came in as a product. And there's a segment of our clients who just swear by it. And that's always nice. And so that's why we built it.
Well, I don't feel like I have a problem with mood, but because it was a new product, I had to order it. And so I'm trying it. So
Yes.
I'm taking 3 P3OM before I go to bed at night.
Yep.
And in the morning, first thing, I'm taking the cognibiotics.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do.
Okay.
That's exactly what I do.
Well, I also loved the aspect where you're talking about being intuitive, like tuning in to your own personal body needs, because that is something that people have lost the ability to do, but it was always there. And what better way to handle your health than to realize what works for you and what doesn't, and go with it. Just like you said, there's all this stuff over here, but what I have noticed being pushed so much is protein. Like every reel I see, every video I see, especially at my age, protein, protein, protein. But what I'm finding that people are missing is the enzymes, is the actual nitty gritty nutrients. And we are suffering, and we are constipated and bloated and having all of these intestinal issues. And all we can talk about is protein. And it's like, guys, we got to get this right. What are we fighting for? We need to be focusing on brain power and all of those things that we need to get into our system to be able to thrive. And you're not going to do it on just eggs in the morning. It's not going to work.
Correct. So I think, and this is, coming from a bodybuilding background where people are hyper and have been for the last, 60, 70 years of your protein content relative to muscle building. And there's a whole lot of belief systems and rituals that develop by that. But if you actually look at what your body needs, it doesn't need protein. It needs the amino acids from protein. And in order to get those into your system, you have to go through a digestive process. Enzymes are a big factor. Now, humans are the only species on the planet that cooks its food. And when you cook your food, you destroy all of the enzymes. Well, that forces your liver to manufacture these enzymes. The challenge with that is that methodology of getting it means that you need more protein than is healthy to consume. In other words, you need a high consumption of protein, and that has a bunch of deleterious effects. Undigested protein in the intestinal tract is one of the biggest causes of dis-ease. In other words, it feeds bad bacteria. Bad bacteria produces a whole bunch of neurochemicals and bad things that can, affect our blood, our brain, our mood. We get impacted, we get constipation or diarrhea, which are actually two aspects of the same issue. Basically, it's compression of undigested foods packed into our systems. And this becomes a bigger problem as we age. And as that breaks down and becomes more complicated, number one, a lot of people don't feel good when they eat different types of protein. They might find that when they wake up, they feel tired, or they get these bloated, or they get impacted, and they're like, I don't feel that good. I don't want to have chicken anymore. I don't want to have chicken, or whatever it happens to be. And so a lot of, I would say, low resolution thinking has come around the protein thing. The advantage of protein, and let's talk about the advantages, is number one, high satiety. So the ability to not eat too much. Protein takes a lot to digest and it's high satiety, so you feel full, and it's not calorie dense. So you're feeling full, you're stabilizing your blood sugar, and that has a lot of positive benefits. The downside is if you don't have a great microbiome operating, then you may have trouble in your intestinal tract. And if you look at emergency hospital visits in America, 12% of the emergency hospital visits in the country are related to gastrointestinal issues. 100 million people, that's a third of the population, almost 25% of the population in the United States, suffers from some form of digestive illness on a given day. And 25% of those end up on permanent prescription medication, which ultimately leads to surgeries and things like that. So we have a major crisis in this. And it's not something that just eating fiber is going to fix or having protein is going to fix. You've got to actually fix the way that you convert your protein into the amino acids and eliminate the foods. And that was an area, that's where I ran into problems back at the Mr. Universe. I wasn't doing that properly, and that's what led me to have all that weight gain and that bloating and stuff. And then I figured it out thanks to Dr. O'Brien, and we built a company around that to figure out digestive health and to develop unique enzymatic formulations. So Masszymes became the enzyme for the masses. It's 17 different enzymes, high proteolytic. We have Gluten Guardian, which is for the people don't make the dipeptidyl peptidase 4, which is an enzyme that breaks down gluten. That's why so many people have problems with gluten nowadays. We have a vegetarian enzyme, which is high on the fiber type of enzymes that breaks down fiber. We have a Capex, which is for ketogenic diets. These formulations were designed for the diet that's right for you. So you look at your genetics. So this is, maybe I'll do better on a keto diet or a plant-based diet or a paleo diet. Okay, what is the enzyme formulation that would work best for that? And then maybe if I go off on a more recreational side, like when I go out, and I'm going out with my friends on a Saturday night and it's a pizza party with ice cream, well, I make sure I have extra Gluten Guardian and I make sure I have a little bit of extra Capex in there because I know I'm going to have high fats. I know I'm going to have gluten. I know I'm going to have these things that aren't that great. I take those enzymes and I take my probiotics before I go to bed and I feel great. I don't have the digestive problems. I go to the bathroom fine. I don't feel bloated. I don't have that brain hangover that you wake up in the morning.
Right. Okay. I just want to ask one question for me, anyone.
Yeah.
I'm in middle-aged, in their 50s. Mass enzymes.
Yes.
How many would be good for me to take a day?
I always say the easy number to remember is 3, 2, 1. 3 Masszymes, 2 P3OM, and 1 HCl. Hydrochloric acid is often a correlative effect in digestive health as we get older, particularly because our ability to produce hydrochloric acid tends to diminish. Some of that's correlated with chronic dehydration because you actually need water to make hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid also serves as a disinfectant, so it kills bacteria, viruses, parasites, all that sort of stuff. And as we age, it tends to diminish. And one of the causes of acid reflux and heartburn is insufficient amounts of hydrochloric acid, not too much. Mm-hmm. So it's a key aspect of the digestive health. You can watch the video on my series called The 5 Stages of Digestion. That combination of 3, 2, 1, 3 Masszymes will cover just about any meal.
Okay.
1 hydrochloric acid and 2 P3OM. I use 2 P3OM. P3OM is a proteolytic probiotic. And why I like it is because most people have problems breaking down and digesting their proteins. And because of that, that's where they run into the issues.
So 3, 2, 1, like 30 minutes before the biggest
Just before, yeah, just before you eat, it's fine.
Okay.
I just take them before. Like, I literally have the bottles here right where I eat, upstairs and downstairs, and I just take my enzymes and away I go. The big factor is enzymes. Hydrochloric acid, a little test that you can do to find out if you're low in hydrochloric acid. This is really simple. You take a quarter teaspoon of baking soda, you mix it in 4 ounces of water, drink it on an empty stomach. If you don't burp within 5 minutes, you have low HCl levels. So it's a simple test. It's an easy way to test.
Okay, I'm gonna do
And if you burp right away, you've got good hydrochloric acid levels.
Okay,
so.
good. Everybody needs to go take that test.
And I strategically have 1 day a week where 1 day a week I fast. So I'll stop eating, say at 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and I'll take a whole day off the next day, and I'll eat again the next morning at say 8 a.m. So it's around 36 hours or so where I don't eat. And then once a week, I have a day where that's we call it spike day. I will consume 2 to 3 times my caloric intake in a single day. And I have whatever I want that day. So if I want potato chips, or I want pizza, or I want ice cream, or I want the forbidden foods. And there's 2 benefits. One, that keeps my metabolism spiked up. So on one side, I'm accelerating autophagy to take away any of the negative side of things on one side. And on the spike day, I'm pushing my body's capability to manage an excess of calories without storing body fat. So it keeps my metabolism revved up. I'm 50 right now, and, I'm in fabulous shape, and I'm grateful for that because of all of those internal factions. But I don't want to develop a lot of people in the diet industry get all these don'ts. And I think subconsciously and psychologically, that's not healthy.
Yep. And that's one thing that I teach my clients is freedom. We have freedom. We get to be in the driver's seat, and it's the best life that there is. And Correct. It's one that you can live out, right? We can live a healthy life this way. You get to go on vacation and come back and not feel like you got a diet.
Exactly. And it makes the whole thing graceful and easy.
That's right.
And I think your dietary choices should be that way. It should be easy and graceful. And there's an adjustment phase. Sure. But it becomes a point of interest. And you'll get to a stage when people go that way that you start running little mini experiences. Well, what happens if I start this? Or how do I feel when this comes in? And this is where the cultivation of intuitive eating comes. And eventually you'll know, oh, I need to have some of this. I need this in my, like you just intuitively will pick it up. And it's remarkable what our capabilities are. And I would love everybody to discover the superpowers within them. And I think they can if they want to, stick with it.
That's right. Yep. Well, I want to thank you again for all of this amazing information that you have shared with us. And I'm thankful that I actually have it on video. I can listen to it again and again. And I just want to encourage all of you to go check out Bioptimizers. I'm going to put my link below because I become an affiliate. It's just a brand that I completely believe in and trust. And because I have had my own personal experiences, it is absolutely amazing. And I have a code down there for a little discount. But thank you again. Thank you guys for watching. And you guys have a great day.